Deep in the heart of the Amboseli National Park in Kenya, where acacia trees dot the landscape and Mount Kilimanjaro serves as a majestic backdrop, there lived a conservationist named Dr. Samuel Njoroge. For over 2 decades, Dr. Njoroge had dedicated his life to studying and protecting the magnificent wildlife that roamed these plains. Among all the creatures he had encountered throughout his career, there was one special lion named Jabari that had formed an extraordinary bond with him, a connection that would stand the test of time and distance. Jabari's story began in tragedy. On a routine patrol in 2009, Dr. Njoroge and his team discovered the bodies of 3 adult lions, victims of poachers who had taken their valuable parts and left the carcasses to rot under the harsh African sun. As they documented the scene for authorities, a faint sound caught Dr. Njoroge's attention. Following the noise, he discovered a tiny lion cub, no more than 8 weeks old, trembling behind a nearby rock. The cub's mother was among the slaughtered lions, leaving the young Jabari, meaning brave one in Swahili, orphaned and facing certain death. Against protocol but following his heart, Dr. Njoroge made the decision to take the cub back to the research facility. He was severely dehydrated and wounded, recalled Maria Kimathi, a veterinarian who worked with Dr. Njoroge at the time. Samuel refused to leave his side. He slept on the floor next to the cub's enclosure for weeks, hand-feeding him and talking to him throughout the night. This dedication formed the foundation of their unusual friendship. As Jabari grew stronger, the bond between man and beast deepened in ways that amazed everyone at the conservation center. The young lion would recognize Dr. Njoroge's footsteps before he entered a room, greeting him with playful chuffs while remaining wary of other humans. For 3 years, Dr. Njoroge raised Jabari until the young lion was ready to return to the wild, a bittersweet moment that the conservationists knew was necessary, but dreaded nonetheless. The release was carefully planned. They chose a territory with plentiful prey, adequate water sources, and a small pride that might accept a young male. On the day of Jabari's release, Dr. Njoroge personally opened the transport cage door. "Go," he whispered, his voice breaking slightly. "Be free, my friend." Jabari hesitated, looking back at the human who had been his protector and companion. Then, with a final glance, he bounded into the tall savanna grass, his tawny coat disappearing among the golden plains. What surprised the research team was what happened next. Unlike most rehabilitated animals that never return once released, Jabari would appear whenever Dr. Njoroge's vehicle approached his territory. The lion would maintain a respectful distance, but would often follow the jeep for miles, walking parallel to the track. "It was as if he was patrolling with us," Dr. Njoroge would later write in his journal, "making sure we were safe in his domain." Life continued this way for several years. Jabari established himself in the ecosystem, eventually taking over a pride of his own. Dr. Njoroge watched with paternal pride as the once fragile cub matured into a formidable apex predator. Their unusual relationship became something of a legend in conservation circles, with researchers from around the world visiting Amboseli to witness their interactions. Then, in early 2016, everything changed. Dr. Njoroge received an offer that conservation professionals dream of, an appointment as Director of African Wildlife Initiatives at the International Conservation Alliance headquartered in Geneva. The position would allow him to influence policy, direct funding, and potentially save thousands of animals like Jabari. It was an opportunity he couldn't refuse, despite what and who he would have to leave behind. Before his departure, Dr. Njoroge made one final visit to Jabari's territory. As if sensing something was different, the lion approached closer than usual that day. He came within 20 feet of the vehicle, remembered James Odera, a junior researcher who accompanied Dr. Njoroge. Samuel spoke to him in Swahili, words I couldn't understand. The lion just sat there, watching him, listening. I've never seen anything like it before or since. 7 long years passed. Dr. Njoroge's work took him around the world, from conference rooms in Switzerland to field studies in the Amazon, from fundraising galas in New York to conservation summits in Tokyo. Through it all, photographs of Jabari remained on his office wall, a reminder of the special bond they shared. He kept in regular contact with his colleagues at Amboseli, who would occasionally send updates about Jabari, now a magnificent adult lion with a distinctive dark mane and a small notch in his right ear from a territorial dispute. By 2022, these updates had become increasingly concerning. Jabari had been challenged and defeated by younger males, a natural if brutal part of lion society. Driven from his pride, he had retreated to the boundaries of the park, where human-wildlife conflict was more common. Park rangers reported that he seemed thinner, less vibrant, and had developed a noticeable limp after an encounter with a buffalo. "He's becoming a solitary male," one email read. "They don't typically survive long in that state." The news weighed heavily on Dr. Njoroge's mind. When the International Conservation Alliance announced a restructuring in early 2023, he made a decision that surprised his colleagues but felt inevitable to him. At 55 years old, with an illustrious international career behind him, Dr. Njoroge resigned from his prestigious position and accepted a role as senior researcher back at Amboseli National Park. "I have unfinished business in Kenya," was all he said when asked about his unexpected career move. Upon his arrival in February 2023, Dr. Njoroge immediately sought information about Jabari. The reports were not encouraging. The lion had been spotted only twice in the past month, and those sightings described an animal that appeared wounded and malnourished. Park rangers theorized he might have been caught in a snare set by local herders protecting their livestock, a common but heartbreaking occurrence in areas where wildlife habitat borders human settlements. Determined to find his old friend, Dr. Njoroge organized a search team. For 3 consecutive days, they combed the southern boundaries of the park where Jabari was last seen. The search was made more difficult by unexpected heavy rains that had transformed parts of the usually dusty park into muddy, impassable terrain. On the morning of the 4th day, as hope began to wane, Dr. Njoroge decided to visit a remote watering hole where he and Jabari had first practiced hunting skills many years ago. The afternoon sun was beginning its descent when Dr. Njoroge's jeep pulled up to the watering hole. The area was quiet, with only a few impalas drinking nervously at the water's edge. Dr. Njoroge scanned the surroundings through his binoculars, methodically searching each patch of shade and tall grass. As the minutes stretched into hours, his colleagues suggested they return to base camp before darkness fell. But something kept him there, a feeling he couldn't explain. Just as the golden hour painted the savanna in warm amber hues, movement caught his eye. A lone male lion emerged from a cluster of bushes about 200 yards away. Even from that distance, Dr. Njoroge's heart began to race. The lion moved with a pronounced limp, his once proud gait now halting and cautious. Through the binoculars, Dr. Njoroge could see that the animal was significantly underweight, with ribs visible beneath his dusty coat, but most telling was the small notch in his right ear and the distinctive scar above his eye, marks that belonged to only one lion. "It's him, Doctor," Njoroge whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "It's Jabari." Against all safety protocols and ignoring the urgent warnings of his team, Dr. Njoroge slowly stepped out of the vehicle. Dr. Mariam Patel, who had been filming their search efforts, later described it as the most reckless and beautiful act of faith she had ever witnessed. With camera rolling, she captured what happened next. The lion noticed the human immediately, his posture changing from casual movement to alert attention. For long moments, Jabari stared at the man standing by the vehicle, his ears forward, his tail still. Dr. Njoroge remained motionless, allowing the lion to process his presence. Then, softly but clearly, he called out a name he hadn't spoken aloud in 7 years: Jabari. The lion's reaction was immediate. His ears perked up at the sound, his head tilting slightly as if trying to place the familiar voice. Slowly, with his injured leg causing a noticeable limp, Jabari began walking toward Dr. Njoroge, The researchers in the jeep held their breath, cameras recording what could either be a miraculous reunion or a terrible tragedy. When Jabari was approximately 50 feet away, he paused, lifting his nose to the air. "He's catching my scent," Dr. Njoroge murmured to his colleagues without turning around. Then, to everyone's astonishment, Jabari let out a soft vocalization. Not a roar or a growl, but a rumbling sound that seemed to carry 7 years of waiting. The lion continued his approach, moving with increasing confidence despite his injury. When he was just 15 feet away, close enough for Dr. Njoroge to see the gray starting to fleck his once golden mane, Jabari stopped and lay down, his amber eyes fixed on the human before him. It was an invitation that defied conventional wildlife behavior. With infinite slowness, Dr. Njoroge knelt on the ground. "Hello, old friend," he said, his voice breaking with emotion. "I've come back to you." For several breathless minutes, man and lion regarded each other in silence. Then, with deliberate movements, Jabari rose and closed the remaining distance between them. What the cameras captured next has since been viewed by millions around the world. The massive predator approached Dr. Njoroge, not with aggression, but with what can only be described as recognition. He circled the kneeling man, occasionally making contact with his body, much like domestic cats rub against their owners. Then, in a moment of trust that left witnesses speechless, Jabari gently pressed his head against Dr. Njoroge's outstretched hand. "In that moment," Dr. Njoroge later wrote, "all the years melted away. He was once again the cub I had saved, and I was once again his protector. But now we were both older, both scarred by life's challenges, both somehow finding our way back to each other." The reunion lasted nearly 30 minutes, with Jabari eventually lying down beside Dr. Njoroge as the conservationist carefully examined his injured leg and malnourished condition. In the days that followed, Dr. Njoroge and his team established a discreet monitoring station near the watering hole. Jabari was provided with medical treatment for his injuries, a snare wound that had become infected, and supplemental feeding to restore his strength. While such intervention would normally be against the park's hands-off wildlife management policy, an exception was made for this extraordinary case. To the amazement of the conservation team, Jabari chose to remain in the vicinity of the station even after regaining his health. He established a small territory that conveniently overlapped with Dr. Njoroge's research area. Visitors to Amboseli would sometimes witness the unusual sight of a solitary lion, watching calmly from a distance as Dr. Njoroge worked, a silent guardian in the savanna grass. Their story became a powerful symbol of conservation, featured in documentaries and scientific papers about animal cognition and emotional memory. While some scientists remain skeptical about attributing human-like emotions to wildlife, those who witnessed the bond between Jabari and Dr. Njoroge found it difficult to dismiss the evidence before their eyes. What we observed challenges our understanding of animal memory and emotional capacity, explained Dr. Patel in a peer-reviewed paper published the following year. The recognition was immediate and unmistakable, despite 7 years of separation. This suggests long-term memory capabilities in lions that we have previously underestimated. For Dr. Njoroge, the scientific implications were secondary to the personal meaning of their reunion. "Jabari waited," he said simply in an interview that went viral online. "In a world full of change and movement, he remembered and he waited. There's a profound lesson in that for all of us." Today, Dr. Njoroge continues his work at Amboseli, now focusing on the complex relationships between humans and wildlife. Jabari, now in his later years for a wild lion, remains a solitary but healthy presence in the park. Their story has inspired increased funding for conservation efforts across Africa and has changed how many people view these magnificent predators. As Dr. Njoroge often tells the students who now come to learn from him, conservation isn't just about saving species in the abstract. It's about recognizing that each animal is an individual with its own story and capacity for connection. Jabari taught me that, and in saving him all those years ago, I never imagined he would one day return the favor by rekindling my purpose when I needed it most. Thank you for watching this extraordinary story of friendship, loyalty, and reunion across species. If you were touched by Jabari and Dr. Njoroge's journey, please consider supporting wildlife conservation efforts in Africa and around the world. Don't forget to like and subscribe to see more remarkable animal stories that remind us of the profound connections possible between humans and the natural world. Until next time.